Well, good evening, everyone. I am so glad you have joined us this evening for another one in our health series events. We've had some great ones so far, and I'm so excited about this one tonight, because it is about the gut-brain connection. And I am pleased, as always, to have Dr. Candace Corson with us. And Dr. Corson is a traditionally trained physician who is now doing functional medicine. And she is just tremendous. I cannot wait for you to hear everything that she has to bring because she's always fantastic. So, Dr. Corson, I'm going to ask you to begin us tonight. What is the connection between the gut and the brain, and why should it matter to us?
It's such an important field that's now expanding rapidly, and that's good because human beings, we all want the best for our family, our young ones, our elders, our communities. And the more we can know how nature works and work with Mother Nature and work with kind of the grand design of how we're put together and how we're supposed to function, the more on track our health can be with less suffering, more joy, more years of quality. And that's what I've dedicated my life to. And I know so many people, whether they're in the field of medicine or not, feel the same way. They want that best for themselves and for others. So the really key point I want to share tonight is about the things that we feed ourselves, the things that we get a chance to eat. Those are the things that change our immune system, either supporting it on a day by day, even hourly basis, or tear down that health. Usually we're unaware that we're doing that. And so the things we feed ourselves are the exact things that the germs that live inside us and are supposed to be there by the trillions, it's the things that they eat. And so that's kind of a big idea. And I know Dr. Bill Sears, who's going to do a call later on this evening, has written extensively about that. He and his wife, Martha, who's a wonderful, they're co-authors of many books. I think they've written well over 45 books on the care and feeding of children. But that's something he really teaches beautifully to the grown-ups and the kids love it.
Mhm.
Feeding the good guys. So the good guys are the desirable, important, not even optional microbes or germs that live in our gut. And there are many species, hundreds and hundreds of the valuable ones. And if we just had one species, it wouldn't be enough. It needs to be a whole ecosystem of them working together. And they do so many things for us, including make the vast majority of our messengers that our brain uses to work right. So a lot of people would call those neurotransmitters. Well, we used to assume they were made in the brain. No, the vast majority of what we need for our brain to work is made in the gut by the good guys. And they travel through the bloodstream to where they're needed. So those good guys, we can call that a healthy microbiome, microbe meaning little one-celled organism. The microbiome is the ecology that lives inside of us in our gut. And also there's a microbiome of our skin and our respiratory passages and so forth. But we're really focusing on the gut microbiome tonight. And so that microbiome is very precious, very elegant. We will probably never understand the full depth of it. And it's under assault every day, and we don't even realize it. So one of the biggest ways that we assault our microbiome without trying to is antibiotics. So we'll focus a little bit tonight on some terms. Antibiotics are drugs that kill microbes. So antibiotic. And they were a huge breakthrough, and they still are, really a blessing when needed. But they're always a double-edged sword. There's never a situation where an antibiotic is not a double-edged sword. It's always a double-edged sword. So if you really desperately need an antibiotic, what a blessing if we have it and have the right one for the germs that are growing in you and causing trouble that they shouldn't be. But there's always going to be damage, and that damage occurs to the good germs in the gut, to the extent that it's estimated that the first round of antibiotics, like let's say a week, 7 to 10 days of antibiotics, that first round if it's under the age of 1 year old, doubles the lifetime risk of asthma. I mean, that should make us sit up. You're doubling, without meaning to, the lifetime risk of asthma, because what happens when we lose the good germs is that we get inflamed. These good guys, the little good microbes that we need, all these good kinds, they regulate our entire immune system. So they're the thermostat for our immune system, not only for accurate function of kill function. So our immune system is doing all the elegant things of killing the right things, viruses that shouldn't be replicating, bacteria, fungi that shouldn't be replicating in our tissues, but also it's regulating the what we call the immune or inflammatory cascade. So what we're doing with the good germs, they are regulating the amount of inflammation to be correct. So it's just enough of these killing chemicals that our immune system makes to kill the right things, but not enough to damage our healthy tissues. And that is going so awry today. It's really messed up, to use a medical term, messed up. There are now over 100 disease entities that we call autoimmune. And when I was in medical school, it was just a handful of names that we would call things like systemic lupus. So I will tell you, when I was in medical school over 50 years ago, we had a class, we had a lot of good classes, and one of them was in immunology, and they were talking about how our class, they were hoping, would be able to recognize these things and figure out and have a suspicion, oh, this might be what's going on, and then try to figure it out. And that thing they were talking about, you guys, it was lupus. Does anybody ever, have you heard anybody that does never heard of lupus today? It was a zebra. They said, you guys will recognize the zebras. We're training you to recognize what's rare. Lupus, is it rare today? No, it is not rare today. So we're going to talk more about and hear some wonderful stories that are very important for people to get to hear. But the bottom line is, we want to have our good germs intact. And when they're disrupted by antibiotics and many other environmental insults today, heavy metals, mercury, lead, cadmium, the list goes on, arsenic, all these things are bad for our microbiome, but also many other chemicals, and even the very common, you might call it ubiquitous, herbicide called it's glyphosate, which is the active component of Roundup. That is listed as an antibiotic. It has so much antibiotic activity, it disrupts the microbiome of the soil upon which our life depends, the food system, how it grows, and then also our gut microbiome. So many things are in the way today. The good news is we can do some things to protect and enhance our microbiome. And one of the most important things, which if you do anything else, it really won't work very well unless you know this, it's adding plant foods, because the good germs, the ones that are desirable, are all plant eaters. They're all vegan plant eaters. Now, that doesn't mean all of us people have to be a strict vegan and eat only plants, but it does mean we need a huge rainbow of different species of edible plants to eat on a regular basis. High quality, fresh, with the enzymes intact, and with having been fully matured. And that's what our ancestors had. As long as they weren't in starvation, our ancestors, when they had food, it was fresh. There was no refrigeration, no trucking 3,000 miles, no microwaving. You get the idea. And much of our produce today, we need that produce in the grocery aisle, but much of it, I mean, the vast majority, it's 2 weeks off the plant, if not 3 weeks or more off the plant. And a lot of people don't realize that. So we need it. It's necessary, but it's no longer sufficient. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight, is the role of functional plant food concentrates that are made from plants, berries and vegetables and fruits, many different kinds, specifically that are grown to maturity by small farmers in high quality soils and without chemicals, and tested for their chemical content, and found to be, it's not there. So it's beyond organic in terms of the carefulness and the testing. So herbicides, pesticides, heavy metals, all these things are tested for, and that is the Juice Plus nutrition products. So small farmers growing, usually single crop experts, so apple farmers cranberry farmers, orange farmers, and growing their crop to their expertise all the way mature, not picking it early and shipping it, and then crushing that produce, the skin, the peel, the seeds, very nutritious, but we usually don't ever have a chance to eat those, and crushing all of it very carefully so that it's finely pulverized. And that is really pre-digestion. So it means that people with a sick gut, as long as they can have any kind of food at all, they can use this functional food, and it's greatly to their benefit. So there are now 48 published, peer-reviewed clinical studies at major universities around the world, not done by the company, and that exceeds by far any other product in its class. It's really best in class and first in class, and it's called Juice Plus. So I want to just go ahead and let you share your story, Nina, of your experience in terms of helping yourself to retrieve your health. And I know along the way, we also notice that our brain is, either functioning better or functioning worse. And I'll just share really briefly, I have not needed antibiotics since I've been using this functional food, except for 4 instances, and those were different tick bites, which were Lyme disease. So I had acute Lyme disease, and my husband had 6 episodes over about 3 summers, and I had 4. And each one did require doxycycline antibiotic. And after my 4th round, I was not happy anymore. I was not a happy person. And I recognized right away, I am now getting depressed because I've lost too many of these good guys. And so I increased my whole food concentrates and also took in healthy fermented foods, which are probably the best source of probiotics, the good guys. And my husband started making sauerkraut from organic cabbage, and I happen to love it. And eating lots of probiotic foods and prebiotic, which is the function of Juice Plus plants, that's prebiotic foundational food for the good germs to grow on, and got my health back. So I will stop there, Nina, and just thank you so much for all that you do for all of us in terms of education.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I did want to touch on one thing before I start into my story, and that is you had mentioned when we have a healthy gut, it makes the neurotransmitters that are so important to our brain. Can you just touch on what some of those are?
A lot of people know those, find them familiar names, serotonin, you know, the whole range of those neurotransmitters. Serotonin is the first one that comes to mind, and it regulates mood, and it regulates affect, how we're feeling, and also even cognitive function is very affected by all of these neurotransmitters. So, dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, they're very important, and the good guys are experts at making these for us. So we don't want to inhibit them. And I did see patients over the years, and I didn't know why, who told me they were depressed after antibiotics. And I just put it in the back of my head, but I didn't know how to make sense of it. Now we understand, and it happened to me, and I felt it personally. So that whole field is called psychobiotics, by the way. The field of psychobiotics is the impact of the good germs or lack thereof on our brain function.
Wow, that's amazing. And it's amazing to me to know that all of that starts in a healthy gut. So I can just imagine, especially with such a proliferation of people in the world today lacking enough dopamine or norepinephrine, and what an effect that has on them and their cognitive function and their ability to process and so forth, and what a difference that would make if our bodies were able to make more because our guts were healthier. That is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is a
Absolutely.
good segue right into my story. So let me start with that. My story is I actually grew up not being a very healthy eater. And I thought I really didn't understand what good health was. And so I thought if I wasn't gaining a lot of weight, then it was okay, whatever I ate. And so if I wanted the whole bag of cookies, I ate it. And my mother used to tell me, one of these days, the way you're eating is going to catch up with you. And when I hit about 40, it did. I had inflammation everywhere, and it was very, very painful. And I slowly learned that I could control some of that inflammation, take it down a notch by changing my diet. So I got off of sugar. I got off of starchy things that would convert to sugar. I was eating mostly plants and some meat. And sure enough, I got better. Now, I was always on the verge. I couldn't eat the littlest bit of sugar because I would have a very quick and very profound reaction. But I thought as long as I could control it, I was doing fine. But what you don't realize is when you're in that state, you don't know that you're living on the edge. And it's only going to take something small that is going to tip you over into a very sad state. For me, that something happened to be a spider bite in 2009. And what the doctors believe happened is that it introduced a virus in my body, and the virus set up a chronic cascade of catastrophic inflammation that resulted in me losing my entire colon to sepsis. And once I lost my colon, my weight plummeted because I could no longer digest plants at all. I couldn't digest most foods, as a matter of fact. And most of my hair fell out. I lost all my muscle mass. I had an ostomy that eventually, after about a year, they were waiting for me to gain weight back so that they could do the surgery to take the ostomy down and reconnect what I had left. But even when they were able to do that, I only gained weight back up to about 102 pounds. I had dropped down to about 90 pounds. And I'm 5'8", so you can imagine what that looked like and what it felt like. I was a fall risk. I couldn't do anything on my own. I was living in my living room, sleeping in a hospital bed downstairs in my living room. I couldn't even get up the stairs to go to bed. And this is pretty much the way my life was for about 3 years. I was on 13 pills a day, just trying to slow down my digestion long enough to get some value out of eating something. But everything was going through me in 2 hours or less. And so as a result, I was slowly starving to death. And when I realized that, well, I prayed because after 3 years, what the doctors were telling me was 3 years from whenever, you've had the last treatment and, the worst that things can get, that's about as good as it's going to get. You're not going to get any better than that. And here I was. I still couldn't do much of anything. I didn't have much of a life. And as I said, everything I ate was going through me so quickly. So I prayed because there's no one else to appeal to except for God. And I asked God if there's a way for my body to get the nutrition I know it's craving in a manner my body can actually absorb. Please show me what it is. And the very next week, a good friend introduced me to Juice Plus, which is whole, better than organic, raw fruits and vegetables, powdered and put into a capsule. Now, it seemed to me like this wasn't nearly enough nutrition for what I knew I probably needed, but it was 100% more than I was getting at the moment. So I thought anything is an improvement, and I started taking it, but I went so slow because I was so afraid that with my poor digestion, there was no way my body could handle that. I literally started out with 1 capsule in the morning. I did that for about 3 days, and when I tolerated that, I added 1 other capsule and I put it at the other end of the day because I was afraid to take them together. Slowly but surely, I built up to a regular adult dose of the Juice Plus, and I was also taking the complete shakes, which are plant-based protein shakes. And the very next week after I started the Juice Plus, I caught the flu. And that was what I was most afraid of because I felt like that is what's going to tip me over. That will be the end of me. But it wasn't. And not only was it not the end of me, I didn't even end up in the emergency room. After I got over the flu, everything started to slowly improve. My muscle mass started coming back. My hair started growing back in. I started getting some strength back, and I was able to try a step or two. I was able to pick up a glass of water, which with one hand, which I had not been able to do for 3 years. And I was slowly getting my life back. And Juice Plus was the only change that I had made. So I credit the Juice Plus with giving me the nutrition I needed to have my life back again, to save my life. It was truly an answer to prayer for me. Not only that, I can tell you I'm still on Juice Plus. I will never not be on Juice Plus for the rest of my life. And all these years later, I am still seeing improvements in my health every single year, something that I didn't think was possible. And even better, a lot of the issues that I had before the spider bite, the autoimmune issues, the inflammatory issues that I had, most of those just disappeared after I got on Juice Plus and kept going with it. So no longer did I have the Behçet syndrome that I'd been diagnosed with, didn't have the fibromyalgia anymore, and thankfully, I also didn't have the brain fog that I had at that time. So this was a game changer for me, and I recommend it to everyone.
Oh, Nina, that is so powerful. I wish that all the medical students and doctors could hear this because they're good people. They care, they work hard, they want the best for their patients always. And they just don't have, at most institutions, adequate nutrition education here today, even 2024. So we're hoping that that will get better. And I love the research on Juice Plus because it's the research that they recognize. It's the real deal. Gold standard scientific research excellence. And that's what can capture their interest when they're looking for help for a loved one or for themselves. Usually they have to have a reason because they're busy and stressed.
Right.
But once they really begin to understand and learn more, they love our Juice Plus community because they find like-minded people from all walks of life, including their own profession.
Mm-hmm.
And it's greatly enjoyable for them.
And I couldn't help but think, Dr. Corson, if it made such a difference for me when I was so depleted, what would it do for people who start out in a better place, who are actually healthier than I was? What might it do for them?
You
So,
know, that's a beautiful thought, Nina, and that's where our Healthy Starts comes in. Healthy Starts for families, free for children. So any child between the age of 4 years old, and 26th birthday, so that's 21 years, from age 4 through the age of 25, up to their 26th birthday, they're free attached to a grown-up in their family. Usually mom or dad or grandparent or aunt or uncle, godparent. But this program has been going on for over 25 years, and that's how I got involved to help my kids. I thought I didn't need it because I was eating great. And after about 6 months of using this every day, just so my kids would do it, I realized I felt better than I had in 25 years previous to that. And that really touched me because I was eating well. And so it's a beautiful thing. We need it in today's world more than our ancestors did for so many reasons. We have more toxins than any other generation has ever been exposed to. So the other role for plants is detoxification at the level of the liver. And you can't detoxify without plant molecules to create the ability for the liver to conjugate and pair up things properly and throw them out of the body. So it's just multifactorial, isn't it?
it is. It really is. And
Yeah.
I know you have your friend Chris here with us
Yes.
tonight.
I
I
want
want
to
to hear Chris's story.
Absolutely. So Chris, a wonderful friend
Yes.
from Columbus, Ohio, we met at a reunion of our wonderful school we had gone to as kids, and it's just been a pleasure, such determination. And Chris, do you want to share your story? I just wanted to say you were a
Sure.
professional, a tennis coach at a very high level of a women's college for decades and loved it very
Yeah.
much and have functioned at a high level your whole life. And just take it away, Chris.
Okay. Well, my story is not quite as dramatic, although I will say an answer to prayer was Dr. Corson when she stepped into the picture. I went 100 miles an hour as a college coach. I thought I knew good nutrition. I preached it to my kids, but I found out that I really did not when I've come to this point. But I hit the wall. I was on every committee you can imagine, national NCAA, et cetera. And all of that, I came down with an autoimmune condition that's my tracks. And one thing led to another, just kept going downhill and downhill and downhill. And I had something called eosinophilic gastroenteritis. And I called Dr. Corson after we had run into each other, and she had told me about Juice Plus, but I hadn't started it. And she answered a lot of questions health-wise for me that led me to say, I better do this. And so I got started on it. And at that point, I'd been to the emergency room 3 times. They had run every test possible to figure out why nothing was going through my system. I wasn't absorbing it. I was bent over day and night. I was in so much agony. And so I started on this protocol, and it took a while. And I think that's the one thing that we wanted to emphasize right now was the fact that but I was persistent because as a coach, you have to be in many other ways, and you ask your athletes to be. And so I stayed with it. And gradually, I started to come out of it. And I will feel better now than I did 20 years ago when I was working. And I loved what I did, and I was active doing it, but I really didn't know what it meant to have good nutrition. So the variety of things, capsules, are things that I never would get. I would teach about health of fruits and vegetables, but then I got just certain ones. And so the capsules provide so much more. And that was what was so important, because variety is a name of the game when it comes to your nutrition and health. So that's my story. And I'm just getting better as each day goes by. And I'm happy. Thank you, Dr. Corson, for all the good knowledge that you imparted to me.
Amen.
Oh, Chris, thank you so much for sharing. And I just want to say what a marvel that, Chris has just arrived in a beautiful location that's kind of remote on a mountaintop in North Carolina. So that's a little bit of the connectivity on the internet is probably a little bit impaired. And if you want to, anything else you wanted to share, Chris, if you turn off your video, your voice will probably come through real clear.
Okay, let's try that.
Yeah, it's just a trick I've learned when you have low connectivity. If you have any, without the video, we can usually hear your voice really well.
Okay, is that better?
I think it is. Yeah. So, and Chris,
I really am in a remote section, so that's.
It's really dedication that you did, because you just arrived. Okay.
Yes.
She just arrived in this location, and that's a lot of dedication to be on this call. I want to thank you for that.
Yes.
Well, it's very important to me to impart this. I feel like I've gained so much knowledge through the process. And so now I think it's my responsibility to go out and share it.
That's exactly how I feel.
Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful heart.
Yeah,
absolutely. We're really about helping people, helping all of us have a better quality of life so we can enjoy our life and be of service to others, which most people I know want to be, but we can't do it if we're really in a mess. We need to have some strength behind us, and what a joy to be able to get that back and give people hope.
Amen.
So,
now, we promised you all that we would try to keep this call down to about half an hour, which we have right now. So there's just 2 things I want to say besides thank you to both of you for being on tonight, and to all of you for being here. But one is we are doing this as a health series. So you're likely going to see more coming up. We have some that we've already done. And even though we have recordings of what we've done here this evening and what we've done before, and we can send those links to you so that you can watch them, I urge you, when you know we're having another one, make time to be on the call, because after we stop recording, we get the chance to ask Dr. Corson questions, and she has more freedom to speak after we have stopped the recording, and we get a lot of gold during that time. So if at all possible, when you know we're having one, try to be on live with us. And the second thing I want to tell you is, if you are interested in getting Juice Plus for yourself, or even for one of your kids or for a loved one, then all you need to do is talk to the person who invited you to this call. And I guarantee you, they can help you get Juice Plus for yourself or your family. And thank you all so much for being on. The rest of you who are with us, stick around because Dr. Corson is going to be answering some questions. Thanks for being with us, everybody. Good night.
Thanks, Nina.